All right, welcome back, guys, to another episode. We have a great show for you, and as we promised on Sunday, we did like a 30-minute rapid fire of what has been going on the last 3 weeks, and today is going to be about going in depth a little bit more and talking about some current political issues that it's on everyone's mind, and talk about some Florida politics and some great stories. So I'm not gonna bore you guys with a long intro. I'm gonna have Seth introduce, and then we're gonna, as you can see, AJ's back again, back to back like Drake, and so we are looking forward to having a great round conversation. How you doing, Seth?
Doing good, Jesse. Ready to go. We just covered basically everything we missed over the last few weeks, last episode, just the other day. But now we're going to discuss the current events of the 2024 election, talking about polling, the direction, the rhetoric, and we are going to predict pretty much what's going to end up happening because I feel like at this point, everything is written like a movie. So let's just figure out the end of the plot. Of course, obviously, things are so unpredictable. Like,
Yeah.
imagine a month ago where we're at now. This is unbelievable. I can't believe the difference it makes. So, for all we know, Trump is going to all of a sudden replace JD Vance with like Oprah or something, just like he wanted to in year 2000 when he ran for president. I don't know if you know that. He ran for the Reform Party and he tried to have Oprah Winfrey as his vice president. He's also run against Pat Buchanan, who he called a Nazi because he thought it was too far right. Ironic. And that what did he end up losing? I don't even know who won in 2000. Oh, it was Jesse Ventura or something? I don't know. He was running against Jesse Ventura. It was back then. It's crazy politics. Now we got.
Was Ventura with Reform? I thought he had like his own thing.
He was. He switched from that party to the Reform Party in 2000. But
all right.
Minnesota, I think they had like a Minnesota Independence Party or something like that. That was what they ran with for like the whole 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Minnesota, same state.
Yeah. Man, but back when Reform was like more of a powerhouse, that was wacky. Obviously, I don't even think I was alive for most of it. But the things I hear about it, it's fun, and I hear a lot of people in the Reform Party being like, "Man, if we could only get back to like that level of status, we'd be able to at least have some kind of platform." And I'm rooting for them. I think that there's some cool people over at the Reform Party. That being said, I do think Yang stuff with Forward kind of steals a little bit of their thunder as far as like having like a moderate party. And also,
I think if Kennedy had ran under Reform, he could have revived it.
But
it wasn't that long ago.
Reform does work with Kennedy, to my understanding, but he's not a Reform Party candidate. In some places, I think he has their ballot access, so he'll have like the Reform line, but it's not like a wholly Reform movement. It's kind of like what the Pirate Party is doing with Roman Supreme this year. That's my understanding of it.
Well, yeah, I think AJ has a very interesting perspective on the 2024 election because everybody's talking about, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, but we got ourselves a minor party specialist here.
I suppose I guess you could call me that. I mean, naturally, I don't. Yeah, and I guess for anyone who doesn't know, I was active in the minor party scene for a few years. That's kind of not how I met Seth. I think you were kind of already on your way out of that when I was in it, but through
I was pretty independent for a while.
But through mutual friends I met in that scene. That's how I know Seth, and of course Jesse as an extension, and that's how I'm here. So yeah, I was in that for a little bit until I realized that maybe I did want to be a little bit more of an establishment hack. As much as it pains me, it still pains me to this day.
Yeah.
It hurts, but it's what has to be done.
That's what we all have in common, though.
Yeah, so there are definitely things we could talk about there. I mean, I think RFK is a strategically interesting guy. He brings a lot of variables. And of course, I mean, I'm not as again. This hurts me to say, but I'm not as up to date with what Vermin Supreme's doing this election cycle as I'd like to be, because I have current projects like off the ground floor, and I'm really excited about that. But yeah, I'm always down to talk minor party politics, even if I've shied away from it in recent years. It still fascinates me. It's a very fun way to waste time and not get anything done.
Well, I do think that, you know, RFK is probably a determining factor in this election. As much as Kamala is very much ahead, him being another factor is really peeling away from Trump voters who would very possibly vote for Trump otherwise.
Yeah, and that does interest me because, you know, when he first started running, you know, because of his previous track record with, for better and for worse, being more of a green style guy. There are things I like about that. There are things I don't like about that. You know, people thought that he was going to be a spoiler for the Dems, but over the course of the election cycle, I think his place has kind of been a little bit more defined, and I really do think that Trump should worry about him more, because I think he's pulling a lot of that center-right vote away from him currently, and I'm very curious to see how that shakes out in like swing states, especially.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think that RFK got a good heart. You know, he embodies a lot of the American spirit, but he has no chance in hell. It's just what it is. I mean, third-party candidates just can't win. It's just, I mean, I get it, and I believe, you know, that everyone should have a voice in this election, but we have to. It's kind of sucks. Like, you have to understand that there's a two-party system, and you got to go with the guy that checks a lot of your boxes off. I mean, you know, who can win? You can't just be, you know, the guy who's like, oh, F the system and we got to rewrite it. It's like, okay, great, but you can't win. So why would I waste my vote on it?
Well, what do we think about the? It's a very popular concept, an idea, a theory based on some pretty clear evidence that RFK might be like a plant for Trump. That, you know, he's kind of been buddies with Trump for a long time in conservative politics, and then he's a Kennedy, but then so he ran for it as a Democrat, you know, to, you know, attract some more liberal voters. Maybe he has some more liberal views and he pushed them forward, but he hasn't run on those since then as an independent. So that was, as an independent, supposed to talk about his real views. He's not really running on his real. I mean, he's not running on liberal views, so that must be a sign of where he really is at. And we all saw that phone call. Did you see that phone call, Jesse? Where RFK is like,
with Trump?
There's a leaked phone call with RFK talking on the phone with Trump. Yeah. And all like, yeah, we're gonna win this. And RFK's like, yeah, we're gonna win this. Like just the whole conversation, they were very much on the same page with the common enemy. And it really seemed like it's not impossible that they've been talking on the phone this whole time. Wasn't it leaked by his son? His own son, RFK's?
It was like leaked by his son. It's suspicious. I don't think it's definitive enough for me to say that, you know, it's actually like an actual conspiracy, especially since he's, like we've said, pulling more votes away from Trump. But
I think at this point he's turned, but, you know.
Yeah.
At this point, he likes his own clout.
I don't know, because he's always he's part of a political kind of phenomenon that's really, really weird, where you have these people that were like, you know, like they're like Green Party voters, or they're more like Social Democrats, but in a very weird, dissident way, where they get kind of, you know, like authoritarian left, like, you know, like tanky adjacent. Not quite, you know, like they're not that radical. You know, at the end of the day, they're mostly Social Democrats, but they have a lot of weird beliefs. Sometimes they're conservative, sometimes they're just conspiratorial. And this portion of the electorate, I think people think they're a little bit more chronically online than they are. I think they're an actual portion of the electorate, but they're very, very flaky as to what major party they actually end up voting for. And it seems weird because, you know, a lot of these people would fancy themselves as quite left wing, but
I think basically what you're using a lot of very technical terms. I think what you're describing is just populism. where you're more just economically progressive, but like socially, like whatever the way you're raised, you know what I mean? You kind of have just a general vague aspect of politics or conceptualization of politics, and that makes you very amenable to like just any sort of inflammatory rhetoric. You sort of fall in sort of like we're against them no matter what kind of thing, and they're against us. That's kind of.
I think the specific kind of like weirdly syncretic populism is a little special, though, and the forms of the way that like kind of like the culture and community is formed around it, and that makes them, you know, like very swingy voters, and I think that's RFK definitely attracts that demographic, and so it's like it's ended up in a very funny spot where he's pulling more votes from Trump, even though he would fancy himself more of a left-wing candidate.
Yeah. And if you look at his economic policy page, he's definitely, it sounds like a Democrat. So I don't know that a lot of people voting for him are really voting because of like economic policy. If I'm being completely honest, it's very much based on rhetoric and anti-establishment, and a lot, honestly, I don't know why people are so inflamed by just simply the vaccine thing, but people are like one issue voters for him because of the vaccine thing. And that's just insane to me, because vaccines don't even play like a role in our politics anymore. It's just like, where were you in 2020? That's what I care about. Like, I don't understand it. It's not like we're, enforcing COVID policies anymore, or enforcing mask policies, or vaccine policies. This is stuff of the past that they just won't let go of. They're just mad because they didn't want to look out for others as much as wearing an itchy cloth in their face.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Because they're definitely no one cares about COVID policy except for two very vocal groups of people, and those are like very vocal minorities, and those are people who want to bring certain restrictions back because they think that we still move too fast, and people who are mad about things that happened 4 years ago still. And man, it sucks. It's weird, but I think that there are enough people like that to make a difference in swing states as to whether or not they vote for Trump or RFK. Basically, I don't know. The RFK campaign is it's fascinating because like it's easy to like point at and be like, like, haha, that's a train wreck. He's such a a weird guy. Or it's easy to be like, well, I admire him for trying. It's always nice to have an independent candidate. But like, I think he's more successful than people thought he would be at the outset, and that's definitely very interesting.
Oh, definitely. Well, I mean, he's also on the downward trajectory. But if you talk about his peak, it was very Ross Perot level. Like he was at a solid player against Trump and Biden at one point. Like it was like, was he going to get 23% in this election, or something? That's unheard of. Third-party results in the modern history. But no, now he might get like 6%, if we're being fair.
6% could very well determine the results of the election, and
that's why we're talking about him. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's that's healthy for democracy, right? Because now both candidates have to figure out how they're going to pull votes away from RFK. I think this is a much bigger issue for Trump, so it's really interesting to see that relationship. Are they and there's that conspiracy thing, like are they in bed? Is this a ploy? Or is it just there's so much interesting weird stuff going on there, and I think, like I've said, Trump is the person that really has to worry about this. I really don't think there are that many. If we had like a ranked choice system, 1 RFK, 2 Harris voters, there should be, in theory, because we're talking about how he fancies left wing, but I don't think that that's going to be as much a factor in this election as people who are trying to decide between RFK and Trump, and that's just the political landscape right now. With center right people alienated by Trump, moderates alienated by Trump. I don't think that I said I think the weird populist group I was talking about has a voice in elections, but I don't think it's necessarily larger this election than usual. But it is there, right? But I think who gets the center right moderates between RFK and Trump it could be a deciding factor. So I don't know. There are people saying that like, oh, RFK is going to like drop out and endorse Trump. I don't believe that. I don't think that's going to happen, even if there if there's some kind of conspiracy going on. I don't think that's going to happen. But Trump could find a way to get rid of the RFK issue. That sounds like he's going to kill him. I don't mean he's going to kill him, but
I think
I'm curious.
RFK endorsing Trump feels like a 60%.
You just sounded like RFK for a second there.
I know my voice got. I was summoning his energy. No, I think RFK will endorse Trump. I think there's like a 60%.
All right.
If he is able to drop out still and have his name removed from the ballot, or
I don't think he can have his name removed from the ballot.
So now he's got to run then. He's got to run all the way through.
Well, he doesn't have to run, but I think his name's going to stay on the ballot and everywhere that it is already.
I take back what I said. It's too late.
But
I don't know.
Here's another interesting thing about this, though. What's got us to this point where this is how we're talking about RFK now, because it's been on this trajectory, but the replacement of Biden with Harris is really what put the nail in the coffee when it came to the coffee. Put the nail in the coffin.
You're not drinking nails in your coffee, guys.
Yeah. It put the nail in the coffin when it came to people from more varied group of demographics, from people left of center voting for RFK, because when Biden was in the race, there were a lot of disaffected people that were anywhere from the center left to progressives,
and minority communities too.
Yeah, minority communities. Now that's not the case. We have all this momentum for Harris. I think that just kind of like that sealed it for him left of center. I think now that they have an actually good candidate, that's not as much of a concern for the Democrats.
I think RFK's main support was from people who said, I don't want Trump or Biden, and so they'll vote for anybody. And I think there's also a big demographic at his peak was before he really came out and just talked about his Israel policies, because I think there's a lot of disaffected people on the left who are like, shoot, I don't love this guy's policies on vaccines, but like overall, he's, I'm not going to vote for Biden because Biden's the genocide guy, blah, 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 blah. And, so they're like, hey, he seems like he was a Democrat, so I'll vote for this guy. He's a Kennedy. He doesn't have the karma or whatever behind the genocide or the genocide shit. So now that's not an issue.
Especially to that point, and to Jesse's point about minority populations being, not liking Biden so much. Now the Democrats have a woman of color on the ticket who is, I'd say, we talked about this last time, I'd say probably going to be much better in bring peace to Israel-Palestine. She does not like Netanyahu at all, and she makes it very obvious, and that makes me very hopeful. Like all these things that people were looking for when they didn't see it in Biden.
Sure. Yeah. No, I would have to say 100% right. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, the Palestine and Israel issue. There's a lot of gaps tonight, guys. So bear with us. The Palestine and Israel issue, it's going to be a defining moment for her campaign, and her finding that balance of being pro-Israel but understanding the human toll of the effect that Israel has caused to innocent Palestinians is going to be very crucial for her to navigate that. And I think she's doing a good job of that, honestly. I think she's navigating that well. I mean, but she's going to have to do more on that to show, she's fighting for Palestinian, civil rights versus balancing with, most Jewish people want, which is a peaceful, to live in peace. So I think she is definitely balancing that. To wrap up the RFK thing, I mean, RFK is a guy that I think is he has a very zealot mindset, and I think he believes that he's doing the right thing Um, but the reality is, it doesn't matter who he drops out, he stays in. I think Kamala Harris has kind of killed that whole campaign, just simply because, like you were saying, it's that campaign was really focused on not Trump, not Biden. We want somebody young in there, even though RFK was still old, but it's not as drastic as Trump and Biden was, and it was a fresh face. And so Kamala Harris has that fresh face, and she's not as old as them. So that kind of replaced any kind of market share. I'm sorry, I'm talking business way, but any kind of market share he would have had, it's completely been kind of taken away by Kamala Harris. Um, but speaking of Kamala, I just think that I am, excuse me, I apologize, Vice President Harris. I think that one of the things that I'm concerned about, and it's starting to quell a little bit, is the polling numbers in the swing states. I see that she's doing a very good job at either going even or even some polls leading, which is very good. What do you guys think about that surge? Do you think that the Kamala Harris romance is coming down, or do you think she's going to keep gaining more and more strength as people get to know who she is more?
I don't think
it keeps
people
going
undersell. I don't think. I think most people know her to an extent, and I think we can get to know her farther. But I think really, it really goes to show that she is forefronting Tim Walz in a lot of rallies, and I think that more people get to know him, it's also going to shape their opinion of her. Because I think. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, I was just filling space. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think, again, and I'm coming from limited experience when it comes to actually seeing these things play out. I'm 22. I've only really been super conscious for so many presidential election cycles. But it really does feel like Walz is playing way more of a role than a lot of vice presidential candidates do at all, and I think that's really to their benefit, right? Because a lot of people were like, it's hard to not like Harris and Walz both. I think you have to be really cynical to be someone left of center and already open to voting for the Dems and not like either one of them. They're aligned on a lot of policy, but in terms of how they the rhetoric that they use, just where they come from, how they've spent their time, I think that they make a really, really good team, and I think it's a really, really smart move to front him. But it's also not super expected. I don't really think that's too common, at least from what I've seen. But I'm really glad that they're putting Walz out there because he's a great guy. He's very charismatic. He's definitely the right guy to do that with. But it's interesting.
I believe he's polling like 11% more approval rating, or like a higher percent than Kamala, which she's above 50%. So I think it's not like he has a large majority of people that know who he is, because I think there's a large people selected do not know or something still, so that's where we make up ground. But so far he is very, very popular with, even people who are finding Kamala Harris to be not very popular. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what his the point of the campaign was. I always thought Vice President Harris had an issue with connecting with people. I always thought that was one of her biggest flaws.
Yes.
She's very smart. She has a great record, and she's a good politician. But the problem is she lacks that connecting. That thing Tim Walz brings. He brings that ability to captivate an audience with just 5 short words, similar to what Trump can do, similar to what Joe Biden can do. Like Joe Biden's like, Trump's a bully, and then that just sticks with people, And Trump has these little nicknames he makes for people, and Tim Walz has the same ability to do that. And that was something that I think that was going to be a weakness for Vice President Harris because I felt like she never had that ability to do that.
Mhm.
And so I think that was really a great VP pick. I thought she was, I was like, man, she shot herself in the campaign already, picking him, but I was 100% wrong. Like, he's actually been the right candidate for her because it's like he picks up a weakness that she has, which is sometimes not that she can't connect because she can connect. He's a politician, but connect in a very wide scale. I think that's what he brings. He has that ability to be like, he has that ability to bring, the spirit of America in just a couple of short words, which is a good thing. And you see me laugh, I chuckle because a thought came to my mind. I was watching the news this weekend. I don't know if you guys ever heard of this guy named Charlemagne the God.
Oh yeah,
I've heard of him. Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty funny. But the reason why I laughed and chuckled, he called Tim Walz a DEI hire.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yes.
And so I was laughing in my head because I was like, it's so weird because that's something usually, associated with the white male.
Yeah. But that's what it was. Everyone, when Harris became the nominee, or the presumptive nominee at that point, I guess, everyone was like, okay, what Midwestern white guy is she going to pick as VP? Those are the only options. And like,
her and Mr. Shapiro was the only two options.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was a couple. It was the governor for Kentucky, Shapiro, Walz. I'm missing one of the.
Mark Kelly was running at one point. He's not Midwestern, but
yeah, I knew that Mark Kelly thing was a far fetch. I knew they couldn't lose a Senate seat, so I was like, that's not gonna happen. Yeah. But there's another governor. I think it's like South Carolina, something like that.
Well, no, there was also. Oh, you're thinking of also Roy Cooper. Roy Cooper's in the running back.
Yeah. What is it? North Carolina?
North Carolina.
South? North. Okay, sorry. I get the two confused.
Which Kamala Harris is polling above Trump in North Carolina as of today, or at least polls are coming.
North Carolina has the potential of being a blue state. Of all the southern states,
it can go blue. I think they went blue for Obama.
Yeah, it definitely has enough Democrats to make it a blue state. I mean, obviously a progressive can't win that state, but they're a very moderate to win that state. That is similar to Georgia.
Georgia's definitely more democratic, and I do think it's because they have a smaller white population. That plays a nice role. North Carolina did did go for Obama in 2008, but that's about it. But there is their governor, the gubernatorial race is what's his name? Gosh, I wish the Republican. Do you know who I'm talking about, AJ? The Republican governor from North Carolina.
Is that? Oh no, I was thinking of Youngkin, but that's Virginia.
He is.
No, he's
the one guy. He's like the Doug Mastriano of North Carolina. I can't remember. He's like a Holocaust denier. Like
that guy. Oh yeah, the guy who's running. I don't remember his name.
Yeah, I can't remember his name. From North Carolina, Republican.
Isn't it Roy Cooper still?
He's the current lieutenant governor.
The current governor of North Carolina is a Democrat.
Well, sorry, Sue said Roy Cooper. She's not. She's right half the time. Give me 1 second.
No. Roy Cooper is the governor, but I'm talking about the Republican running for governor.
No. I know, but she was wrong. Hopefully, Apple, you fix this with your new AI update in September and October.
Oh, Mark Robinson.
Mark Robinson. I think I was starting to remember the Robinson part, but okay. Yeah, Mark Robinson. Anyways, sorry, I wasted all our time trying to remember his name, but I do feel like he, being so radical, is dragging down Republicans in North Carolina, just like Mastriano did in Pennsylvania in, was it 22?
Yeah.
Or was that 20?
The Trump back, it was like part of that wave where all the Trump back candidates kind of lost.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry, since Josh Shapiro dramatically overperformed, that's why people think he's such a great candidate, because he's running against a horrible, Republican candidate. That's why I think that's Trump may actually win in North Carolina, or the other way around. I'm so sorry. Trump might actually lose North Carolina because of Robinson.
What are the swing states right now, because of Kamala Harris?
Actual
right now,
swing states, I would say Nevada, Arizona, or really could go either way.
Pennsylvania, which should go for her because Shapiro's going to back her. Wisconsin, which I don't know if we're going to win Wisconsin.
I think Wisconsin's pretty safe for the. I'm not safe, but pretty solid for the Democrats. I think it's going to go 4% in her direction.
So? No, yeah. I don't know if Wisconsin's that safe.
Wisconsin's a pretty Democratic stronghold. They're kind of like Michigan. They they lost in 2016, just like Michigan did. But for the most part, they just, what's his name? He's very, very liberal, and he's an old man. What's his name? He's very forgetful. Yeah,
it's not coming back.
I'm so embarrassed, guys. I remember all the names. I swear to God.
Yeah, I'm gonna win an award for naming
Evers. I didn't even have to finish type.
Oh yeah.
To finish type, it was Tony Evers. I remember. Yeah, he's a very good governor. I'm very surprising that he won, because he's very progressive, and I don't know if you know, Wisconsin was one of the only states that voted. They're historically for the Progressive Party. They have had socialist mayors in Milwaukee. Wisconsin's a very historically progressive state, but progressive meaning more like populist, not necessarily like left wing. So they're more like Minnesota in the sense they're like agrarian populist types, and but they also Paul Ryan, yes, they also have that side of Wisconsin. It's very bifurcated. No, for sure. But genuinely, I think William Jennings Bryan, and this goes back way, but they've had way long time, but they've had like progressive, progressive party senators and stuff like that. So all this is, a reflection of a culture in Wisconsin. And
I think the more that Trump and the Republican Party trends more and more anti-union, which they have been, I think the more the upper Midwest will become even more solidly blue than it already is.
I think J.D. Vance is supposed to try to change that, but that's becoming a terrible thing.
If J.D. Vance were a better politician, then maybe. Yeah.
I know Trump is literally he feels like an idiot. He's like, bro, that's like a terrible thing.
Trump should have picked Burgum. I believe that's who he wanted initially, if I remember right, until everyone talked him out of it.
I don't even think that's the best pick, but it would have been a better pick.
I actually like Rubio.
Yeah, but wasn't there the thing about you can't be from the same state?
Yeah, but Trump's not really a Floridian. He's just there because he doesn't get arrested.
Okay, but it doesn't matter if he kind of is. That's his home state.
Yeah,
on an official ballot. So
I don't think it can't happen. You're right, Seth. But I kind of was rooting for Marco because I think.
Oh no, I actually agree with you. I think he would have been a great choice if it wasn't for that. But isn't that why Trump dropped him out of consideration because of that thing, or is that just the primaries?
No, the two-state rule, which is such a stupid rule. I never understood that rule.
Isn't it about not being? Isn't it about avoiding corruption? Like somebody or like a family member, you have your your cousin as your vice president or something. I don't know.
I've never even heard the rule. It was the first year in politics I've ever heard that rule. I've never heard that you can be from the same state. And then I guess because a lot of these all the good candidates are all coming out of the same states. So it's like.
Yeah,
so that's where we're at. I mean,
liberals are in California and Republicans are in Florida, so it's not a.
No. Texas.
Jesse, Florida's farther red than Texas.
No,
I legitimately think Florida will be more Republican than Texas this year.
The problem with the problem with Florida is. Florida's just different, and everyone knows Florida is just different.
Texas isn't different, but it's big. There's
Well, Texas
the difference between Austin and rural Texas, though, is very vast. I think there's just a lot of divide in general between urban and rural areas, and that's just across the country, completely different. You could be a San Francisco in the middle of the Midwest, but just because you're completely surrounded by other liberal people in the city, that's just how it is. I think it's across the world, or it might be across the world too, but I know across the country, it's just a big divide between people that have to live in a city and are surrounded by other people and have needs like that, and then people who have to fend for themselves with guns in rural areas and who hunt animals and have to work in companies, these few companies available in their small towns. So there's a lot of different issues in the country that people face differently.
I agree with you. I just think Florida is different because the thing about Florida and why people can never get our state right, and like how someone like Trump can win and then someone like Obama won it. It's the reason why we have that vast difference like you're talking about. Like we have major cities here, from Miami, Tampa, Jacksonville, that can really turn us blue. But then we have a lot of rural areas like Texas who can really turn us red. And when the cities don't vote, we look like we're a red state. But when the cities do vote and we turn out in droves, we can always turn the state blue. And that's why we're purple. I know it seems like lately Florida's been this red state, but reality it's just because this governor, he's ran for president. So he has kind of like that, that backing that most people get when they run for president. But it's not. His
popularity was before he ran for president. He was always. I think we haven't seen what will happen since he ran for president. I'm curious because now he's more unpopular than ever.
Okay, so when he ran for governor first, there was a guy named Adam Putnam, and you guys don't know him, but if you're from Florida, you know who he is. But essentially, what he is like his family, the Putnam family. They have like all these farms in Florida, oranges and apples, whatever. He was supposed to be Republican governor of Florida. But what ended up happening was Trump endorsed DeSantis, and then, Trump is popular here. And it's not because, Trump is this super Floridian. He's popular because he's more of an Elon Musk kind of character. And then people, if you've been in Florida long enough, you can see Elon Musk has a very big influence in Florida, because of just the way he thinks like a Floridian a little bit. And so, because he has more of an independent thinking. And if you look at Florida's voter rolls, you'll see that Florida's 1/3 Republican, 1/3 Democrat, 1/3 NPA, non-party. So we have a big wave of like independent thinkers. So that's what ended up happening in Florida. It seems like we're red state, but we're really not. We're really still purple. But it is recently that we've had this governor who's kind of been doing this super like Hitler thing, and people like it because Florida loves strong men. That's just who Floridians are, and so that's why it seems like he's so popular. But the reality is, once he gets out of there, he probably did so much damage to his party, the Republican Party in Florida, that Republicans probably not going to win the state for another 8 years. But I don't know. I ran a soapbox about Florida. Let's take it back to the presidential elections. But I can tell you this: the swing states, there's 7 major ones. I think 5 out of the 7 has newly elected Democratic governors, which is great news for us in those swing states. So I think that Kamala has a lot of data that she can use now to go into the general to be like, look, one Trump, you know what you're getting. With me, you know what you're getting too, but I'm not that guy. So I think that works. I mean, that normally doesn't work, but it worked for Joe Biden 4 years ago. Like, yeah, you may not like me, but I'm not that guy.
I think there's some genuine passion for Kamala Harris-Wall's presidency too. I don't think it's just the better of both equals kind of deal anymore. And I think a lot of the swing states, like I think Arizona will go for Harris, and because Carrie Lake is also the Senate candidate. It's inherently going to look bad for the rest of the Republican Party that they are affiliated with somebody as radical as she is.
Yeah.
Genuinely, but Nevada might go for Trump. I could see that going in his
I don't
direction.
see Nevada. You think so?
No? Yeah.
No.
Obviously go either way.
I think it's getting blue. I don't think it's. You guys tell me. I mean, Harry Reid carried that state for years. I've been really proud of Nevada.
I've been seeing some weird reports and polling, and it's a bit hard to believe. But
Yeah.
I've just kind of been seeing some things that the Mormon population as a whole has been tilting more blue since the Harris Walz ticket dropped, and that would have a non-zero effect on Nevada. I'm not saying that Utah is going blue. I highly doubt that. But that does cause a bit of a spillover effect. Something to consider in Nevada and some other. I think Nevada is probably actually the only swing state that affects. Now that I think about it, because the rest are where a lot of Mormons are deep red. But that's something I saw that I want to research more because I found that interesting.
I've been seeing, based on that report, people said Utah because of the fact that RFK is at 24-25%.
Oh yeah, you're right.
If in that really, that still takes away from Trump. But I don't know. I think Trump will still win, but I think it'll be interesting to see. That will be probably the most interesting state. That could actually be a three-way kind of race. So,
well, I think is it Mitt Romney from Utah?
Yeah, I think so.
Very moderate Republican. I think their governor Spencer Cox, very moderate Republican.
Yeah, they can't stand Trump.
Yeah, they're
so they're gonna do whatever they can to, tell people to vote blue, but they just can't stand it.
Yeah, I mean Utahns, Mormons generally, they tend to be moderate Republicans, but they tend to be very militant moderate Republicans. They really, really stick to it. So, and usually that translates to begrudging votes to someone like Trump. I don't know. We'll just have to see what happens.
It is very interesting though, because I just want the map low key to shake up. I'm very sick of the same swing states and talking about the same couple of states. That's why Georgia was so interesting, because that one kind of came out of nowhere. But I do think Georgia is going to continuously trend blue, because that was always a result of voter suppression and stuff like having only one polling station in this giant Atlantis, whatever. We all know what happened in 2020 and 2016. So, but yeah, I think the race is pretty set at this point. I think pretty much any state that's trending blue is going to stay that way.
Yeah, I think so too.
I was never going to go blue again, in my opinion. I think Iowa, they just have continuously gone further red since Obama.
Wait, Iowa, like IOWA?
Iowa, IOWA. Yeah, they weren't voted for Obama in 2008.
Okay.
So they used to be a swing state.
Really?
They were. Yeah, you don't remember that? They were considered a swing state every year until after 2016. Now they're 2020. They didn't even mention Iowa, but 2016 they were considered a swing state.
And I think Iowa's gonna be solid red forever.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they're so about farmlands out there now. It's
they lost their progressive roots.
Yeah, they're becoming. It's all about farmland, and it's becoming, like you said earlier, Seth. It's like two tales of two countries. Where one portion of the country is rural, they tend to vote Republican. The cities are going Democrat, and we're literally becoming two different nations. So that's just. So I can see more states like Iowa, Montana, more rural states just staying red.
Yeah.
And I can see other blues like California. Sorry.
Yeah, now this is my soapbox. I swear, if it weren't for voter apathy across the board, Indiana would be a swing state. It would still be lean red. I'm not making saying anything too crazy. It would still be lean red, but Indiana, it is a Midwestern state. It's a Rust Belt state. We have a decent non-zero amount of cities here. It's not the most populous state, but like there is an urban part of Indiana. People don't. People that aren't from the Midwest don't remember that because it's so red. They're like, oh yeah, who really lives there? And it's never going blue. But like we do have cities here, and in fact, cities that tend to swing. Terre Haute used to be, I think, before the 2020 election, it used to be one of those like bellwether cities where it would usually vote with whoever won the election every single year. They missed that in 2020, voted for Trump. Other than that, I think they have a nearly perfect record. I think, but what screws Indiana over is some level of like material voter disenfranchisement, of course, but also just voter apathy. We have a really, really bad problem. I think in 2022, during the 2022 midterms, we were like the least voting state in the country. So that, I don't know, it fascinates me, and that's kind of becoming my pet issue. Is I really want people to have a little bit more faith in Indiana, because what screws us over here, the reason why we're not, a more stereotypical Midwestern state in that way, is because like nobody votes here. Like voter turnout is abysmal, and I'm really, really upset about that.
Why do you think that? Do you think it's like the Midwest kind of hangover, disenfranchisement? Because I know the Midwest feels as if the country's giving up on it because of the auto industry, which usually drove the Midwest. It's had manufacturing mostly associated with it. And I know a lot of people in the Midwest feel like the country's kind of leaving them behind, and the workers are feel left behind, and the factory and the manufacturing. Is that they're just disenfranchised? Does it think the country's leaving that region behind?
And absolutely, and I think a lot of them are disillusioned. And of course, this is all anecdotes. This, there's no data behind this whatsoever. But I really think what happened after Obama 2008, when Indiana went blue, is a lot of people in the state seem to have been, I talk to people that voted in that election all the time, naturally, that voted for Obama, even if they were usually Republican or conservative. My dad's this way, for example. They voted for Obama in 2008. It seems like there's a lot of air of resentment in the fact that a lot of people seemed to hope that Obama would bring, a lot more hope and change than he really actually did, that he'd be a little bit more radical, a little bit more of a firebrand. And after that didn't happen, that seems to be when our voting turnout started to get abysmal. It seemed like a lot of people really thought that he was, like that was kind of the last hurrah, and then they were disappointed, and now we have abysmal voter turnout, and when we do, it tends to be Republican, and people in cities just don't vote at the national level because they just have resigned themselves to the fact that their vote won't matter.
No, I hear you on that. I mean, go ahead, sir.
Oh, it's just, how do you think that somebody like Walls, who just really speaks to the Midwestern or just the populist sentiment of regular Americans, would affect the race in somewhere like Indiana, where people fundamentally just don't feel like anybody speaks to them? Do we think like the turnout is going to be a level unheard of? 2020, I mean, 2020 might surpass it because of all the write-in ballots and stuff like that. So I don't know how that's going to change in this election. But what do we think about the turnout this year? Do we think it's going to be like bigger than ever because people are just finally have somebody different?
I think it could be. Yeah. I mean, especially like if we look at a place like Indiana, right? If we use that kind of like as an example. I don't have any, like, no one polls in Indiana, which is a shame. But again, I mean, nationally, all the people that don't live in Indiana have also resigned themselves to red Indiana forever. So, nobody does any polling here, basically. But I think I would hazard a guess that Walls would bring is going to be good for Midwestern turnout, even Indiana turnout, even Democratic Indiana turnout. Again, I can't, and I think we'll actually have a really good test to see. We do actually have a swing district in Indiana, congressional district IN 01. Frank Mervyn is one of our 2 Democratic congresspeople that are still in Indiana, and Republicans are going to try to challenge him, and they've sunk a bunch of money into their candidate. I don't remember his name. And the Democrats have been trying to sink money into Mervyn. So we will have Indiana will have a fun little experiment. We'll get to see how that plays out. As far as kind of like a microcosm of will Indiana fight back? Will be red forever? Because then we'd only have like 1 Democratic congressperson after that. In terms of the rest of the country, we'll switch to that gear. I think I've been on my Indiana soapbox for a little bit too long. I do think, look, it's kind of cheesy when you say it out loud. That something people have been saying a lot is that the Harris-Walz ticket, it looks like America. You have 2 people from different backgrounds but united in very common causes. And of course, Joe Biden was also an old white guy, but no one felt like personally attached to Joe Biden. I mean, some people did, but not enough people.
Not really like non-political people. I think very
not political people. I think Walz is going to fix that. So I think the Democratic base is energized for a reason, and I do think that will translate to good voter turnout for them. Among people who really don't vote, I don't know. I'm genuinely struggling to get a good reading on whether or not really apolitical people are really feeling at this election, whether or not the rhetoric is getting to them. The good news is that everyone who fits that category that I have spoken to that has talked about voting has talked about voting for Harris-Walz, which is awesome, which is great. But I don't have a good reading on whether or not the average apolitical person is going to turn out this election. And I think
here's what I'm thinking. All right, so I have this one friend who's very. All right, so a lot of people at my job, that's my real key polling area. They're just regular people. They're not very. I'm by far the most political person there. They, for the most part, don't love Kamala Harris because they know her from California, and like, I don't know if that's a good representation of the rest of the country, but people overall seem to be a lot more enthused by Walz. I mean, I'm pretty bought into both of them. But people kind of had already developed an opinion of Kamala Harris over the last 4 years. She's been the vice president. People always kind of felt like about her. And I don't think that a lot of apolitical people that's changed yet. So I'm interested to see how Walz is a reflection of her. But also, this is just a thought experiment because I want to see how we think people actually view Kamala Harris. How much more successful would the Democratic ticket have been? Not that I prefer this. If Walz was on the front of the ticket, I feel like that says a lot about how people feel about Kamala Harris. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know what Walz is telling. You're about to.
No, just saying, like, if the role was reversed, do we think that Walz would perform like 5% better? Or do we think that people don't care about the role as much between them, the role reversal, if she's on top of the ticket or not? How do people feel about Kamala Harris?
I think the type of ticket matters. I mean, I like Walz. That's cool, but I'm not sure if he's a president.
No? I feel like Walz could be the president tomorrow. He would be the best choice I could think of in the country.
I don't think he's like, he doesn't strike me as a president. Yeah.
I don't know. I think that if Harris has either a good 4 years or a good 8 years, but I think it could be 4 years too, whichever she wants. She'd have to win if every election she ran in, and if they had a successful tenure as president and vice president, I think Walz could and probably would run in the next election. I think he'd win, and I think he'd win the presidency. To be honest, that's a big. I
100% think he would win. I'm not sure that he would run. I think he's like a good dude, and he'd be like 68, and he'd be like, I just want to spend time with my wife and spend time with my kids now. I'd like to, like, I don't think he has that personal ambition like Shapiro. I feel like that's why she chose him. Is he's not gunning to be the next guy up. Although I do think that if he's really concerned about continuing the message kind of thing, that's possible. If there was some sort of anti-establishment centrist kind of, candidate trying to run against them because they're the new establishment, yeah, I could see why he would try to maintain the message. But no, but I agree. I think he would be very popular. I just am curious how many people are like, yeah, this guy's cool, but I just don't like Kamala Harris and I don't trust her. That's kind of what I heard from my friend who is still supporting RFK. He's just a normal dude. I'm sure he would be liberal with most of his views, except for, he's an anti-vax kind of thing. But, I wonder how much people just have their opinions hardened about Kamala Harris already. That's what I'm curious.
I don't know. I mean, I will say that when I have, like I said, when I have talked to my, apolitical friends, like at work, like with coworkers, what has energized the some that have decided they're going to vote for Harris, they were energized by Walz. I was talking to my coworker that I have now just the other day, and we were sitting, we were writing to change shifts and things like that, and he was just like, okay, so I'm not big on Kamala Harris, but after she runs, we'll get to have this guy as president. And he showed me the picture of kids hugging him, like that iconic picture. And that those are the sorts of things got him jazzed. Why he's voting for Harris now, even though he's kind of an apolitical guy in general. So, to your point, Walz is what seems to be energizing people when I've talked to them. I would love to talk to more apolitical people, see how they're feeling, but I'll have to. Unfortunately, a lot of people that were apolitical, 8 years ago, have their minds set now. So it's getting harder and harder to find, the median voter to really means test. But
No, I agree with you guys. I mean, like I said, I like Walz. I just don't think he's the president right now. Obviously, 8 years of him being a VP, obviously that perception, my perception of him will change. But
do you think that your opinion of Walz not being set to be president is just because you haven't heard of him, for a couple, just heard of him? Because as for me, his experience says he's more experienced. He's more ready to be president than, I was going to say Kamala Harris, but I guess she was vice president. But before that, he would have been more qualified than she would have. He's been a governor. He's been in, the legislature. He's been in the military for 20 years. He's been within the education system. He's touched a little bit of everything. I feel like he's very qualified in a lot of arenas. He became political because of his daughter, because of a healthcare thing. He's touched every issue. I feel like that gives him more experience than most Americans could possibly ask for.
And there's a sense of populism that comes into being president in the United States. And that takes time to build. I mean, as much as we don't like Trump, you're
talking about coalition building?
I'm talking more like coalition building is one way of saying it. But another way of just saying, there's something about you being in the public eye nationally for a couple of years before people can anoint you. And as okay, he can become president. Because what happens is, right now, like I said, I didn't know who he was, but when I got to know who he was, I think he was a good VP pick. But I didn't think he was a good VP pick because I didn't know who he was. And so I think a lot of Americans feel the same way. It's we don't know who he is. And and the problem with running for president is the 2 years that it takes you to become president, 2 years it takes to get to the primary, develops who you are, in my opinion. This is my opinion. Develops who you are and what kind of president you can be. So when I see someone who just, like J.D. Vance or Tim Walz, I see people the party knows who you are, but do really Americans know who you are? Because what happens is with J.D. Vance, that is not happening on our side, but you can see that's what happens when you pick someone who doesn't have a national profile. And then once he gets a national profile, now people are like, there's no way, oh, this guy is going to become VP, is he? And so it's hurting Trump. Tim Walz hasn't done that to Camilla. It's actually helped her, but
Yeah.
it's, that's my reason why I don't think he looks like he's a good president yet. It's really because this hasn't been on the public scene nationally for a very long time.
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying. Oh, go ahead.
I was just say, I mean, yeah, and like let's be honest, like that's why Harris is at the top of the ticket, right? Like,
exactly.
There's so much momentum built up from the Biden campaign. They couldn't really fully switch. Why would they? It wouldn't really be a great decision. I think this was. It's hard to talk about hypotheticals like that because it's like, okay, how much would be different, for Walz to be at the top of the ticket? In a vacuum, I don't know because of the way everything ended up playing out. But I think what they're doing here is really smart, is that, Harris has had the opportunity to introduce to the national public, a guy who is it has been important to his party regionally, and now he can be like an up and coming national figure. And I think that's a great way to build out, another darling within the Democratic base, within people to the left of center that could run for president one day if you really wanted to. Because then I think the pool of future presidential candidates right now in both parties, the Republican Party especially, but even in the Democratic Party, the pool for potential future presidents or just federal, even Congress people, senators, it feels kind of slim sometimes, in terms of the talent that's currently there, because neither party has done a very good job at all nurturing the younger generation to fill any of those gaps. So I think, it's good that Harris has even had the opportunity by being the nominee to pick someone out from a state and kind of put them on the national stage, because we're going to need that for 8 years. We're going to need some guy that could be the presumptive nominee if he wanted it.
Yeah. I just feel like a lot of Americans are just going to be permanently dissuaded from the older the candidate, the worse. Like, I think candidates are just going to get progressively younger. That's what I think. So I'm not so sure that when he's 68 or whatever, if he's going to feel like, I know that that's still young in comparison to Biden, but I think, isn't that the age Mitt Romney decided to retire now? He's not going to, he's like 68. He's like, I'm not going to run again. I think people are going to, I don't know. If he runs, I will obviously 100% support him. Oh my gosh, that would be the best. But I think it's probably going to end up being somebody in her cabinet. She's going to got a chance to actually fill it with somebody new. It does sound like she's not going to go with just a new version of Biden's cabinet, right? As far as I know, she's going with a clean slate. So we got a lot of time to figure that out. It seems like we have a need in the party.
I think Pete should still be transportation secretary, though.
Me too.
Not because he's done a very good job in the role. I'm not quite sure what you do as transportation secretary, but we've definitely had a good few transportation mishaps on his tenure that maybe transportation secretary should have been more involved in. But I like him being on the national stage because he's one of those people that I think could take over. He's younger. He very clearly wants to be president. He moved out of South Bend to a swing state. I think that's a pretty clear sign that the guy wants to be president, right? And I think that he could be a great in the future. So please keep him in the national eye, like somehow,
I think he knows. I just think he knows he can't go from transportation secretary to president, which is why he moved to a swing state, which is why he's going to run for election in Michigan before he runs for president. But he absolutely, that's all he cares about and thinks about. He's going to be president, but he has like 30 years to do so. So he'll get that.
Right now he just needs to build the public resume, which I think he has. I mean, the transportation secretary. This is the most I've ever seen his name ever. I've never seen transportation secretary this much.
He has the reputation. He just doesn't have the experience. He needs more experience.
What we were saying is regionally, people know and like Pete for the most part. People in the Midwest, people in Indiana, people left of center in Indiana like him. But That's not, that's not enough to be president, right? So I think that the transportation secretary thing has been good for him, but he does really need to, he needs to do something in Michigan. I think it would be really cool if he was, maybe a senator or a rep, or something else that's very top level that we can keep him in the public eye, and then he could run for president. And unless something super super radically changes about my politics, I'd support him. I'm already probably a decent amount further left than he is, so I don't know what would change that would cause me to not support him, but I like the guy.
Yeah, that's fair.
Definitely.
I do think he'd probably be the next guy tapped in, honestly, but it's a long time from now. I think we have to verify that we're going to win this one. I think Kamala would be popular enough to win re-election, but after that point, I think we got to give it to the Republicans. Like they're gonna win it at that point.
They're gonna win.
I mean, if 8 years is long enough to figure out who their nominee is going to be after Trump.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point.
I'd take them a good 20 to figure that one out.
It very well might be. It might have messed them up. They got they didn't get that delayed gratification thing. They went all for the money all at once. We're going to throw all of the eggs in one basket and die for this candidate.
The guy's got to retire. At some point, he's going to die. He's old. What is left of the Republican Party after that? Like, seriously.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if they lose too many times, they may actually shift towards the center again. That would be interesting. I could see, I know Nancy May started to shift a little bit right again to, suck up to Trump, but I think she was starting to get some interesting attention. Somebody that's supports gay marriage, supports marijuana, not super wacko, but she's still conservative. I feel like that could be the potential of the Republican Party. It's basically what they do in Canada. They're gonna. That's how they stay competitive. Once you shift a country progressive enough, then we shift the origin window back towards our sides for once.
I mean, yeah, I think that if there's a blue wave and the Dems just knock out the Republicans this fall in November, I think they're going to have no choice but to shift to the center. I don't know how they would survive unless they want to keep the rhetoric alive that every election has been stolen from them and just go completely fascistic. I guess that's another option, but I really think they'd have to shift towards the center if they get beat that hard in November.
Just like there's just a gasping for air, just dying demographic of progressives looking for representation in this country. I feel like there's the same thing in the center right.
Yeah.
I feel like they are dying for somebody to just be support tax cuts, be chill about social issues, and just win elections. They would win every election if that was what they ran on. But just because of the way the country is, I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see how things turn out.
We have 8 more years of episodes before that time. Okay?
Oh my gosh.
And we will have plenty of time to discuss it. But it was a good episode, guys. I think that we touched base on a lot of issues. And I guess we just want to wrap it up with just kind of saying, if you guys, who is your candidate that you guys are really hoping to pull it off this year? I know Omar did it tonight. You're trying to take out the squad, but there's still one left. And so who are you guys really pulling for this year?
Seth, you got an answer?
I mean, if we're not talking about ones that are pretty likely to happen anyways, we could say something like Texas. I would love to see what Colin Allred win Senate or something. That would be something. I would love to see Texans freak out.
Yeah,
but that would be interesting. I definitely want Mark Robinson to lose.
Yeah.
So those are some good choices there. What do you think, AJ?
I'm really gunning for, like I said, Frank Mervyn in the Indiana congressional district. That's going to swing. But also, if we're talking about pipe dreams, I just want to hand it to every single Democrat or minor party person that is running for basically any solid red position in all of Indiana. They do the Lord's work doing that because they're never going to win, but the Democrats keep trying, the Libertarians keep trying. I've worked with both of those state parties. They're great people. Just hands off to them. They have more patience than I do.
Yeah, it really takes a lot of something to run for a third party and honestly expect to win.
Yeah.
Good luck.
The Democrats
Mike
and the Libertarians in a lot of rural counties in Indiana get along really well because they feel like they're basically in the same boat.
Yeah, it's fair. Enemy of my enemy is your friend.
That's very, very true.
All right. Yeah, we should probably wrap it up, guys.
All right, guys. Well, this is another episode of Imagine More. We thank you guys for tuning in, and we want you guys to go out there and vote. And wherever candidates you believe in, go out and stomp for them, because that's important. You know, I didn't even tell people who I'm rooting for. I'm rooting for Kamala Harris to win, so that's why I'm rooting for this shirt. And
what?
It's a big surprise. You know, so I'm gonna help her, and I hope you guys help your candidates, your local, state, and federal candidates. So I'm gonna let you guys go. Saf, say the final word. AJ, say your final words.
Well, thank you, AJ, for coming back. We missed you. It's been a long time since we had you on. I don't mean just because we had you on just like 2 days ago. I meant like you were like the third guest or something like that. You know, it's been a while. We hope to have you again because you are a very, very interesting voice, very coherent, very charismatic, wonderful man. Plug your socials so we can, get you some followers, some wonderful people out there
I'd
can
love to
find
plug
you.
my socials. Yeah. The only one that really matters right now, and I'm doing a bit of an overhaul of all my stuff. I'd like a website soon, and of course I'm working on my LinkedIn because everyone has to do that, as soul crushing as it is. But the one thing that anyone can do right now, if they think anything I've said was even remotely cool, is to follow me on Twitter at AnthonyJ013. Now that is at Anthony JAY013. My name is Anthony J. That's what AJ stands for, and the J is like the bird, JAY. I always feel the need to over-explain it because people get caught up on it. Anthony JAY.
J is also a letter.
Yes, yeah. J is also a letter. People don't remember that it can also be a word. But my parents wanted to name me AJ, but they didn't know what it would stand for. So they were like, "Oh, Anthony's a cool name," and they were like, "Well, Jay's also a word. Can't we just name him like Anthony, like J, like AY?" And that's what they decided on. So
that's funny.
I like my name. No. I'm not throwing my parents under the bus. I think they did a good job with that one. That's the story behind that. So, please follow me. I'm not very active on there, but when I do, I make some very funny tweets, and then I delete them for fear of a future employer. So.
All right.
All right,
thank
guys.
you so much.
Hope you guys imagine more.